Welcome to the deep dark recesses of my garage, which is also where I breed my rodents. So this is going to be a bit of a long-term review on the Vision Ultra Rodent Rack. Now I do have a couple of notes that we're going to be kind of going over and why I find this rack to be a bit better than the ARS rack. So first things first, a lot of people are concerned with cost. And with the ARS rack that I had previously, it was the 5032, which is, the 50 series tub, 32 tubs for that rack. Now, if you were to purchase that off of ARS and have it shipped to you, that is going to run $3,935.46 or 48 cents. Can't really read my handwriting sometime. And the Vision rack, which the ones that I have here, so I have 1, 2, and 3. So this one right here is the newest one that I had gotten. And those run $28.30 and 69 cents. And that's my configuration that I get. So for me, I do the V35 tubs. I do the inward facing water. And then I do the back stoppers because I do find the back stoppers are helpful because if you're pushing, the tub back, you obviously don't want it to go all the way. I do find it a little annoying that you have to purchase those individually. Those should just be part of the set, I guess. And what that basically breaks down to is those Vision tubs are $101 per tub and the ARS tubs are $122.98 per tub. So you're paying about $21 more for an ARS rack. Now, sure, you're getting more tubs. You're getting 32 tubs versus my situation, which is 27 tubs. But there's a couple things that I think are pretty nice with these. One, my cleaning takes far less time, and I'm not really quite sure why that is, aside from, slightly less tubs. I mean, you're looking at 5 less tubs. But I think it has to do with the size. So whenever I'm pulling these tubs out, I can generally pull them out using one hand versus with the ARS, I needed 2 hands for those 50 series tubs because they're long and they get a little bit heavy. And the Vision tubs are 20 inches by 15 inches, which is 300 square inches. And then you have the ARS tubs, which are 28.875 by 13. So you get 349.375 square inches. So you're ending up with 50 square inches less of space, which does mean you could potentially run less quantity in the tubs, but I don't really find that to be much of an issue. So for me right now, because it is winter and it is a little chillier in the garage, I have been putting bigger numbers together as far as the grow outs in all of my breeding tubs. All of these guys are going to be 2.6 colonies, so 2 males and 6 females. And in my grow out tubs, I have been, I basically told myself I'd do about 20 to 30, and that's pretty much what I have, with the exception of the ones where it's like the little hoppers and whatever, because I feel like they're a lot smaller, they take up a lot less space. But in my other ones, they basically just kind of huddle for warmth, which I do need to put a heater out here so my numbers don't start crashing. But the things that I really like about the Vision rack in comparison to the ARS rack is with the Vision rack, and I'll include some little clips over so you get a little bit better review of it, but this watering situation is actually pretty great because in the ARS rack, you would just have it kind of placed on top of the rack and kind of, hoping for the best more or less. Or you would have to mount the watering situation onto a wall or do all kinds of different kind of things to kind of rig it up. With this, you have that system and you can pick which one you want. So personally, I picked for the inward facing. They have an outward facing. And the reason for that is because I want it to take up the same floor space no matter what. So everything for this unit is basically confined and put within that spot. Now, one concern could have been, or has been with a couple of friends that have asked, is about being able to get truck passing. It's probably my rodents actually, so I might have to pause this and come back. Which I still order through ARS, by the way, my frozen rats and mice. But one problem could have been being able to fill the food tray or whatever, which I actually don't mind. So let's take a quick little look. Can't see the camera thing. Yeah, so you have plenty of space both here and in the back, and I generally just kind of slide it towards me, so it's really not that big of a deal. Now, you could also do the water bottle and whatever other things like that, but I do find these gravity water systems are great, and I have 2 of these, and they're 5 gallons, so that's 10 gallons of water that's attached at any given time. And not to give you guys motion sickness, but back again here, if I flip that. So the way I have these set up is I have them hooked up. So we have these 2 guys that are connecting to one line, and then that basically just goes down throughout the entire rack. And I really like how this sits above the rack, and you could put the food in the front, but I don't really want the food to basically be in the same spot as the water, because if we get any little escapees, I don't want those to have a habit of going near the water lines. And FedEx guy is stopping, so I will resume this shortly. So in editing the video, I did realize that I forgot to include a very important thing, and that is talking about putting this thing together. So I'm going to include just some clips, kind of doing that with one of the racks I'd gotten previously. And it's not really too difficult. It comes with instructions. It is a lot easier whenever you have someone else helping you out. I want to say it probably took maybe like an hour, something like that. It comes in a ton of boxes, so if anything, that's the most annoying part, is getting it out of the boxes that are most of the time stapled together. But actually putting the rack together itself really isn't that difficult. It includes the tools and everything that you need, and the instructions are actually pretty easy to follow along with, and you can just kind of do the part that you need. It's kind of like an assembly line. You do each part as you kind of need it, and then you just kind of slap it all together. Doing the levels is probably the most difficult, or can be the most annoying. And that's because you have to actually tighten the levels in to where they're supposed to be. So you just kind of leave everything hand tightened until the very end, and then you put a spacer in between the tub and then the feed grate situation, and then you tighten from there. But the great thing is you can kind of adjust it too. So if it's like too tight, or you realize it's too tight, you can always loosen it up and then tighten it back up again to where it's to your level of satisfaction. So figured I'd throw that in there. All right, so all of the hognose, blood pythons, and Burmese pythons will be happy that their rodents have arrived. And speaking of food, so I was just talking about kind of the water lines and basically putting the food kind of up here in the front, because I know a lot of people don't like that about the ARS system, is that you have to like feed it in the back, and you have in Freedom Breeder, you have you can put the food kind of up front, and then the water is kind of encased and covered. So another thing quickly about the water is I actually really do like the water system, because these things kind of pluck in and hold in. We'll go to the one that's still nice and shiny. So right here, these guys basically pluck in, so they're not going to pop out. Let me brighten that up a little for you. So these guys are not going to come out in any kind of way, shape, or form. They are in there. So you're not going to have a rodent that's going to be able to dislodge this thing and then have the nipple to where the nipple is open, because that's what happens in the ARS racks, is they could basically, make sure we got focus here. So what happens with the ARS rack, if this comes out, well, that little nipple is going to be attached or hitting the wall, and then it's just going to slow drip until you have a literal rat soup. And we do not want that. And that's another thing, I guess, since we're here. This is kind of the dropout system. A little hard with one hand with the camera, but it's basically, they just kind of slide in, which can be a plus or minus. You don't have tracks that these sit on, but they literally just go in and they pull out. And it's very simple to get these tubs in and out, even with, you know, rodents in there, because like it just kind of holds in and you don't have to like fight with the track or anything else. And that also allows for modularity whenever you want to change what types of tubs or something you have, because there's all these different little mounts that you can kind of put them at, so you can do different sizes. So if you just wanted one rack, you can have breeding tubs, which could be, you know, the V18s if you want, but it doesn't make sense because then you're running one colony in this and then one colony in this, but it would take up the same floor space as one V35. So that doesn't make any sense to me. All right, that was a lot of words. Let me catch my breath, and then we can talk about the food trough and feeding them. Which way would give me the best light? So while I move some stuff around and kind of figure that out, the situation of feeding troughs, now being in the back, I don't mind it personally. Well, I don't mind it personally because I am, that is so bright. That is too bright. There we go. I don't mind the feeding in the back, again, because of separating the food and the water situation. But with the ARS, I found it was such a difficult time doing the feed, and that's mostly because, now I have to go back over here because I didn't plan accordingly. Because whenever I would feed, I would use one of these guys, like a little like horse trough, you know, feed thing, whatever. Usually I fill it up way more than this. But the benefit is whenever I go in, or whenever I would try and feed through the ARS tubs, I would have to put a piece of cardboard or something and then kind of drop it in higher because there wasn't enough space between the tubs and the actual food area. Now you can customize this to, flip that, you can customize this to whatever level you want. I put it here on this rack. On the next rack, I actually put it on the second spot because it does give more food. But in reality, you could put it way over here or in the middle or something along those lines and be in a situation where you have even more food space. But what I wanted is the food to actually kind of sit up high and kind of be a little bit confined. So that way there is, I guess, like, so it's not going to be spread out so much. But you could open that up, and you can open up that later if you really wanted to. But back here, we can see that there's a decent amount of space for you to be able to get your, basically your hopper or whatever else you want to fill it up. So for this, I like it because I can very easily just kind of do this, and then I just kind of push it. Well, that didn't catch it at all. So imagine this still has food in it. You could basically tilt it, and then you could just kind of run it along, and then you're filling up that whole front portion of the hopper. Put that down. And then you can just kind of spread this stuff across. And it does last quite a while. These are little backstoppers that I was kind of mentioning. They are a pain in the ass to get on, but they do work, and they stop the tub from coming all the way back, so you're not going to have any escapees. But I really do like the spacing that is allowed to be able to pour the food in back there. And you have plenty of different options for how much you want. You can also get different things that'll actually just really kind of contain it. It's based on kind of your preference. I liked these in the first rack that I got, which was over a year ago now. I think it was back in like summer or something of 24 that I got my first one, and I really like it. And as you can see, this sucker has a lot of dust. Should I dust it? I don't know. The rodent rooms get a little dusty, so it just kind of is what it is. But I really do like these racks in that situation, and I felt like there wasn't really a need to change anything on the third and most recent one that I got. What else did I have to talk about? We went over price, we went over size, we went over the water holders, we went over the food trays. Now, I do want to briefly talk about something that it took me a while to kind of figure out, and that is cycling the rodents. You don't want to keep them too long. So this is review kind of done. Great rack. I really like it. Cost wise per tub, it's cheaper than the ARS. Again, it was $28.30 versus $39.35. So it's like $1,100 difference in price. No, thank you. So cycling the rodents, that is tough, and it's been kind of my Achilles heel, and I would have issues where it'd be production was great, and then I would like not grow stuff up, and it's like whatever, which is why I now have a third rack so I can increase my numbers even more. And so what my plan is to have 1 and 2 racks that are going to be the breeding colonies, and then I'm going to have this guy right here, which is going to be my rack to kind of grow those things out. Shoulders getting tired. Let's switch. So I'm not going to use all 27 tubs for grow out or for breeding. I'm going to use 24 tubs. And the reason for that is I can basically use the bottom tub in each rack as the grow out. So whenever I pull the weans, I can put them in there, let them grow a little bit bigger, and then I can sex them before I put them in here, which, as you can see, I have some pink and blue tags. Maybe you can see them. Let me raise the exposure. Pink and blue tags. So in the pink tubs, I have the lady rats, and in the blue tubs, I have the boy rats. What a thought. And that way, I don't get any spontaneous births. And because the ASFs are kind of bastards, and if you introduce a male that is not one of the ones they know after they've produced, the females will basically gang up on him, beat him up, and murder him, or leave him for dead, which is probably worse. So I'll do 24 tubs, and I have a cycle in which I replace them in every 3 months, right? So 1 rack will be getting replaced. Like I have like this one behind me. This is my old kind of system, so I have like not as many colonies in there right now. So that rack is going to be getting replaced in December. So I'm going to be pulling females from this one come December to replace that. And for each time that I'm replacing, again, I need 24 tubs worth of breeding, and I'm doing 2.6 per tub. So I need 48 males and 144 females. So I need to have that amount ready every 3 months to replace 1 rack. So basically the way that I broke it down, and I'll just kind of leave this up on the screen for a bit here. Focus on it. I'll make a hard copy later too. But basically, June, December, basically every quarter, right? So it's like this one will be getting replaced in December, so the next time that one gets replaced will be in June. Meanwhile, this rack that I started back in September will be getting replaced in March, the other M. So that way, every 6 months, I basically have a brand new colony starting in each one of these racks, but every 3 months, there's a refresh. And that'll ensure that I have strong, young groups that are breeding so that my yield of production is going to be higher. Because whenever you get these things that are kind of pittering out, they're going to produce smaller clutches. Let me look and see. Today is actually cleaning day, and I went through 1 rack the other week. Like this is like a good example here. So we will look at this little family. So this is like a group, and they got a ton of babies in there. And all of those are, they can produce a ton of numbers. The problem is whenever they start slowing down, those numbers drop off. But you can see like these girls are on absolute piles of rodents. So they're good and strong. If I were to go over to the other rack and look at them, let me figure out the way this turns. If I were to go over to the other rack and look at them, their numbers would not be nearly as high because they have been breeding for the past 5-6 months. So again, by refreshing those breeding tubs every 6 months, you're ensuring that the females aren't worn out. And then also by running these larger they're not even that large, but these 2.6 colonies, you're affording yourself a situation where you are going to kind of protect yourself in the event that one of those males does end up getting his ass kicked, that you have a secondary male that can basically take over, because that one male could handle the 6 females, but by having 2 in there, you ensure that if something does happen, he's able to kind of pick up the slack. So I think that covers everything for the Vision Rodent Rack, kind of why I like it, why I prefer it to the ARS rack, and a little bit about how I have cycled my rodents, or how I've kind of figured that out. And kind of big shout out there to Corey, Matt, and Will, as they have been pretty helpful in, kind of helping me kind of figure out that plan as far as kind of how I should be cycling them, how frequently I should be cycling them. And that doesn't just go for the ASF, that goes just the same for both rats and mice. Thankfully, I've had pretty good luck with a lot of stuff taking frozen thawed. Usually babies, they'll eat kind of whatever they want, but for the adults, it's nice just keeping these around, and I prefer them to all the other rodents. So if you have any questions, do leave those down in the comments below. If you took your time watching this video, I do appreciate it, and I do hope that it helped. If you plan on breeding your own rodents, that the review of the rack helps, and breaking down how to cycle your rodents. That's pretty much about it. If you have any interest in any of our animals, check us out on Morph Market, and we post a little bit more frequently-ish on Instagram to see more of the animals we work with. All right, thanks for taking your time to watch this video, and we'll see you in the next one.